Previously on The Grind.
My name is Tuyen. I just turned 22 years old, and I go to the University of Washington in Seattle.
Okay, so her family was sponsored from Vietnam. Not a lot of money growing up.
When I see my mom's hands become crooked and look like they're kind of turning into arthritis from all the hard labor she does as a seamstress, that's what drives me.
I actually asked all the characters on the show to record voice memos of themselves as they went through the job search. So we actually have some really amazing audio of her walking into interviews, walking out of interviews, reflecting on the job process.
This year it's especially hard, and I don't know if it's because I'm applying for full-time positions and I'm doing it basically all alone. I don't know, it just feels like I kind of let myself down.
Hello and welcome to The Grind, everybody. It's your host, Mark, and I'm here with producer Taylor McAvoy.
Oh, I'm a producer now. Cool.
Yes, you are. Congratulations, Taylor.
Thanks.
All right. So when last we spoke, we were talking about Tuyen, and she was going through a bit of a tough time in the job search.
Right. She was really focusing on hunting for a job, and she was kind of having trouble keeping positive during that whole experience.
Understandable.
So I'm curious, how's she doing now?
Okay. Well, actually, we just talked the other day. I have an update. Before we play it, though, one of the companies that Tuyen is interviewing at, we didn't want to use their name in the podcast. So we bleep it out, and we're going to call it, Taylor and I are going to call it Company A. So when you hear a bleep, it's not that Tuyen is like cursing up a storm in her interview. It's that we didn't want to say the name of the company. Okay? All right, let's play the clip.
What's going on with you?
Whoa, hey, forget about me. Wait a sec. What's going on with you?
Yeah, well, this week is really crazy and very exciting at the same time. So I told you I got an offer from.
That is so amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really big deal because it's my first offer as a UX designer, and so it's kind of like the mark of my passion to come true.
How does it feel?
It feels really good. I don't know why I'm not more excited though. I feel like it may be because I've been so ready for rejections and so prepared for it that I forget what it's like to be excited or something. I don't know.
That's not good enough, Tuyen. Okay, you need to be happier. Okay, how do you feel about this company though? Are you would you take this job if nothing else came through?
Yeah, I would take the job because it's a really good company. It's comparable to Accenture. I would be working in the digital team in the digital studio, which usually that team stays pretty consistently in the Seattle area. So even though it's consulting and even though I'll do some traveling, it's not as much as I would do with IBM consulting or something. Right. So
okay, so an IBM consulting is who you have the interview with coming up.
Yes, on June 9th.
Okay, and that's the challenge, right? Because you think that it's going to want to tell you is going to want you to tell them your decision before then.
Yeah.
All right, let's recap here. So Tuyen has an offer from Company A. That's good. And then there's IBM, out in the horizon. It's the dream job. But honestly, we don't know how that's going to work out yet. She's still in the interview process.
Why can't she just accept Company A and then interview with IBM and accept IBM later if she gets the job?
Okay, but then she'd have to rescind her offer in a way from Company A if she ended up with IBM, right?
But don't people do that all the time?
Yes, people definitely do it all the time. In fact, it's so common that there's a name for it. It's called an exploding offer. All right, that's when you have to tell one company your decision, before you find out from the other. So this is common, but it's not totally a victimless crime, right? I mean, think about what happens inside of Company A after they give Tuyen the offer and she accepts, right? They might shut down their interview process. I mean, some of her future teammates who have interviewed her, they might actually be excited to meet her. They're planning, with her in mind. Imagine it was the other way. Imagine, Taylor, I gave you an offer and I interviewed someone else on the side for your job. They said yes to me. I was like, okay, cool. Well, Taylor, sorry, the job doesn't exist anymore. I mean, that'd be terrible, right? Come on.
Right. I see where you're getting at, but also it's a huge company, and Tuyen needs security. She's gone through this entire process. She's gone through all of what we saw last episode in trying to find a job. And if she doesn't have that security and turns it down and doesn't get IBM, she's left out in the cold.
Yes. It's definitely not like a black and white thing. Like ultimately you kind of have to like make your peace with it and decide for yourself. So I actually asked her about it. So your question was like, okay, what do I do if they come back with an offer tomorrow and they say you have to decide by the end of the week and you're still interviewing at these other companies?
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons in your mind?
So if I were in that situation, I would have to say yes to I feel like, because I don't know if I would get IBM or mostly IBM. I don't know if I'm going to get IBM, and so I want a security, but I don't the con is that I would really ruin my reputation with that company.
What's the downside of asking for more time?
The downside is that they will say no and then pull back my offer or something.
That would be pretty lame. I mean, I don't think they would pull back your offer. Like that would be hardcore. I feel like worst case scenario, they would tell you they don't have any more time.
What would you do if you were in my situation?
I was in your situation. So I had an offer from Deloitte and I accepted it. And then I got an interview from McKinsey, and McKinsey is a better firm than Deloitte. But I turned it down because I was really nervous about someone finding out at Deloitte. And I don't really regret it. I mean, I might do it differently today, but I felt like I had so much to lose at that point that I didn't want to screw with it, because I had been like in a similar situation as you where I'd applied to like 50 different jobs and I was so freaked out I wasn't going to get one that I really just wanted to make sure I didn't screw anything up. And I was happy about Deloitte. I was excited to work there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you knew a little bit more about Deloitte than Tuyen does about Company A.
Yeah, and I sort of think it's that simple for her right now. I mean, mission one, figure out if you want to work at Company A. Because if you do, take the offer, don't worry about IBM, sleep great at night, right? And if you don't, then don't take the offer. You know, no matter what happens at IBM, you wouldn't have wanted to work at Company A anyways.
So she needs to figure out more information, right? She needs to figure out if it's the right fit for her, what the culture's like. So how do we do that?
So I think I have a friend who can help. His name is Phil Strazzulla. He's the founder of NextWave Hire, and they help employees figure out what companies are really like.
My name is Phil Strazzulla. I live in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I'm one of the founders of NextWave Hire.
So before I asked Phil about NextWave, I wanted to learn about his first job. I feel like, and maybe I had a misperception of you, so you tell me if I'm wrong here, but like we were talking the other day, and I felt like from the moment you got on campus, you kind of knew you wanted to go down this path of entrepreneurship. Is that right? And if I am right, when did that hit you?
Yeah, so you're definitely right in that I was very focused on it. When I was like 11 years old, I opened up a stockbroker account and I started trading stocks. My brother and I both did it when I was in 5th grade. He was in 4th grade. And I always kind of thought I'd be like a hedge fund manager or something like that. When I went to college, I went to NYU undergrad. I found myself my sophomore year summer working at a 3-person company. It was basically a startup. It wasn't a technology company, but it was kind of like a startup-y company. And they're basically the only company, honestly, that would hire me that summer. And to be 100% honest, that's how I ended up there. And I just loved the impact that I had at this company. You know, like when I made a sale, like that was my sale. When I had a marketing idea, I could actually execute it. And I was like, man, I would love to be the boss of this company. Like I could, you know, kind of like have this dopamine spike from making an impact and also have a lot of autonomy.
Yeah, man, no, that's super interesting. And you tell your story, like, I guess maybe let's go back a bit because we talked a bit the other day. it wasn't always so clear cut, right? I mean, you went through moments where you were thinking of other professions or times that, weren't always so smooth. Maybe walk us through kind of like your path out of undergrad and just how you figured out really that this was where you wanted to be.
Yeah. So in college, I interned my summer before senior year at Morgan Stanley, got a job offer there. It was now the fall of my senior year, which is the fall of 2007, the very beginning of the credit crisis. And basically all companies kind of stopped recruiting on campus, and everybody was just taking the offers that they had from their summer internships. And I was like sitting on this Morgan Stanley offer, and I wasn't sure I wanted to take it. I went to an event where the then CEO was speaking at NYU, and I showed up 15 minutes early, like I always do for stuff. And it was him, John Mack, and Maria Bartiromo, who's like that really famous CNN or CNBC reporter, and me, like hanging out. and John Mack's like, "Oh, so you're gonna join us next summer?" And I think so. And he's like, "What do you mean you think so?" And I was like,
That's like a
"Well, why
no,
did you come
essentially,
back?"
if you're telling him you think so, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was like, well, I really want to be honest here, but I want to work in finance. Like I've always liked finance. As I mentioned, I started investing when I was like 11. I just loved it. And so I found this thing called middle market banking. And basically middle market banking is like investment banking, but it's much smaller companies. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do. So I made a list of all these companies that did middle market banking, and I started emailing them and being like, hey, my name's Phil. I study finance. Like, I really want to work at your company, blah, blah, blah. And most of the people obviously didn't respond. I think out of 100, I got like 3 or 4 responses. 2 of them turned into interviews, and they both turned into job offers, which is great because this was in December. And in November, my Morgan Stanley offer had expired. And so I was like, left this offer on the table to go take a risk and roll the dice. But I was like, you know what? I'm young, might as well do it. So I went and joined this company after school, and it was basically the worst year of my life, to be completely honest. And again, maybe this is something that I shouldn't be talking about in a public forum, but I'm hoping other people can learn from this. It was just a really bad culture fit for me, to say the least. It was kind of a soul crushing job, to say the least. And at the end of the year, I lost my job because it was the credit crisis and I got laid off.
I'm curious about the middle market investment bank, just because you said, you were really excited about that opportunity. You turned down that job offer to find this, and you sifted through these 100 different organizations. So, I mean, what do you mean when you say it wasn't a culture fit, and how were you so off, I guess, when you took the job? Because you're a discerning guy. You don't just jump into things, clearly. So, what was the disconnect between when you were interviewing with those folks, you felt like this is exactly what I want, and then you get there and the culture fit isn't strong?
Yeah, I mean, I probably am an overly thoughtful person, and I think probably the broader lesson here is you just never know until you get in there what something's actually going to be like, to an extent. And I kind of bought into what I was sold throughout the interview process. I think the work itself was very, very interesting, and so I was right from that perspective. And I guess I kind of was a bit too young and inexperienced, really, to pick up on the various signals that I was getting from the people who actually work there. And then I think this is like, could be such a long conversation. But I think I knew it was going to be really hard, and the hard things didn't bother me. And basically, whenever I saw an obstacle and a potential objection, I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through anything. And the long hours, the work, that was all awesome. I think where the opportunity really fell down for me was just the people themselves. And it was hard for me as a 21-year-old to really understand that in the interview process.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm curious about. I mean, you mentioned these signals. I mean, was there any way in advance to get that information about, what the individual employees felt about the company themselves?
It was really difficult. So look, in hindsight, there were a couple of tidbits here and there. However, this was in the days before review sites like Glassdoor. Although, honestly, this company has phenomenal reviews. This was in the days before companies really being more transparent about what's it like to work at the company and understanding that the right information can kind of dissuade the wrong people. And it was, in retrospect, like I don't actually think there really was an answer back then to get that info.
Do you think in hindsight though that part of what happened with this first job was, what has made you so focused on trying to get that information, at forefront in terms of companies? I mean, is that
100%? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're all a byproduct of our experiences, right? And I think that experience showed me that if I had more information, and I think particularly if I could digest that information like throughout the kind of process, or I think about it as a funnel, I would have been able to hopefully make a better decision because I would have had a lot more insights. And especially, I think it's hard, especially when you're a kid in college, to sit across the table from somebody and truly interpret all the data that's coming your way. You're more focused on selling yourself. But if you could look at that conversation from a third-party perspective, you'd probably be able to pick up on a lot of stuff. And in many ways, that's what we're doing with our company at NextWave, is we're giving you the ability to get a lot of this data on your phone, or when you're hanging out in your dorm room, or on your way to the interview, or on the way back, when your mind's a little bit more relaxed.
So then tell us more about like what the actual product is.
Sure. So we start off, so we sell to companies, right? We sell to talent acquisition, HR, the person in the company who's in charge of hiring. And we start off by creating hundreds of employee testimonials about what's it like to work at the company as an engineer, a veteran, a software, college intern, all these different people. And we take that content that we capture through online surveys, we get it back in video and text and pictures, we get hundreds of pieces of content. We take that and we redo your careers page. So your careers page now is a beautiful mobile search optimized branded page that has microsites for all your key roles, tons of content, tons of analytics, and they have these things called talent communities built in. So for the person who's still in school, or maybe their resume isn't up to date, whatever, they're not ready to apply for a job, they can leave their name and email. And what we do on a monthly basis is we send them the updates on the company, what's going on from a culture perspective, what are the awards the company's won, et cetera. And when that person's ready to apply, we're top of mind, and they come back and they become an applicant.
If you're trying to pitch me as an HR exec now,
Yeah.
like I'm scared, okay? Because what if the people come back and are too honest? And I used to be able to control everything. I could write all the messages I wanted to get out there about my company. Now you're telling me I'm going to go to 100 employees and have them talk about the company? Like, that makes me nervous, Phil. What do you say to that?
Well, so we totally understand that. And what we allow for is companies to control the content. So companies get the final say on what goes live and what doesn't. And really, it's built in as a fail-safe. To give you the stat, I think it's 98.5% of content is approved throughout our platform. But the people have the final say. So you don't have to be afraid, but also we still get to that authentic voice.
Yeah, let's talk about that a bit, because it strikes me, Phil, that it's not just a software solution you're selling. You have kind of a philosophy on recruiting, right? So maybe talk more about like what your philosophy is and what NextWave is sort of putting forward that maybe is different from the way people used to recruit.
Yeah, so our philosophy is very employee centric. We believe that your employees are your best brand ambassadors. They're trustworthy. Their voices are authentic, and they also have all the information that candidates care about. So if I'm looking at an account executive role, the recruiter, they might know a little bit of the account exec role, but they don't know the ins and outs. They don't know all the awesome stories. They also don't know the tough stories. And what's interesting is a lot of companies actually are awakening to the fact that they need to be honest, because they don't want to hire, like that investment bank, they don't want to hire Phil. They want to hire like Mike, down the road, because Mike's a better culture fit, and they want Phil to actually opt out because it's not going to be a good fit for either person. So our philosophy is very much around employees, authenticity, going really deep with content, automating work processes, because we know that most people in TA and HR, they are totally overworked, and we want to take work off their plate. We don't want to give them work.
Okay, so Phil, this is a little bit of a technical question, but you're the right guy to answer it. How should folks interviewing for jobs learn about the companies they're interviewing for?
Well, if the company is a customer of ours, you're really lucky because their careers page is going to have tons of information about working there. If they're not a customer of ours, I think Glassdoor, the other review sites, are a good resource. You've got to be wary because they, in many cases, most cases, are negatively biased. And in some cases, companies are really savvy and they ask people in their second week, hey, can you leave us a 5-star review? And if somebody says, oh, I don't feel comfortable, oh, okay, well, tell me why not. And so they get this sort of like overwhelming amount of positive reviews, which are maybe not as reflective of the company. So obviously you want to look at the review sites, you want to look on social. The number one place is if you can find somebody who works there through a connection, LinkedIn, college networks, things like that. Then you can ask them off the record, hey, what's it like to work here, career trajectory, all those questions that you have. I think you get a sense for just sort of like the company's products, their branding. You can look at the reviews for the products, especially in something that has like a heavy services component, and there'll be a sense for what are the people like. So I think it's, some people have different criteria. You might be trying to figure out, is this a good startup to join? And in that case, I'd look at the quality of their investors. When's the last time they raised money? I'd ask the people, hey, what's your burn rate? What's your runway? Stuff like that. For larger companies, it might just be reputation. And so you can look at some like brand index stuff. But it's basically, all the stuff that you can find online, anything you can get your hands on. I think the average person now is doing like 2 hours of research before actual interviews, which is awesome. And I think that you've got to do that level of research to stand out in the interview process and get that job, but also to make sure that this is the right place for you.
Okay, so that was my interview with Phil. Taylor, what are your takeaways?
So Phil made a great point about not accepting a job that you won't be satisfied with anyways, even if it's scary and even if you don't have another option yet, because what's the end game in that point? Like, you're going to end up wanting to be searching for another job in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, you get the benefit of saying you have a job, posting it on Facebook, telling your friends, telling your parents. I mean, let's be honest, that's nice. But yeah, it's still a job you don't want. So as soon as you get there, you're going to have that empty pit in your stomach and you're back at square one.
So I actually took one more thing away from Phil's interview.
Okay, what was that?
It was that you don't actually know what it's going to be like working for a company until you actually work there.
Yes, I think that's like definitionally true, right? I mean, it's like you never know until you know. But like, what good does that do her? Because she can't make this decision before she works there, right?
Yeah, but she can talk to people who do work there. Maybe her friends or her friends know other coworkers.
That's a good point. And that's actually what she did.
Yeah, so I was already very skeptical, and when I initially had my first phone call with, I reached out to one of my friends who was in my same major, and she interned there last summer, and she just didn't have anything good to say. And she said she didn't work in the specific team that I would be joining, but overall she said that UX design is not really, there aren't really any projects for UX designers. So a lot of times you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. And there's not really, like, if you, for a UX entry-level UX designer, you want to learn, you want to grow, and you want a lot of exposure, but you're not going to get that at. And so,
do you think it was just that she was an intern though? Because you would be a full-time role, right?
yeah, I thought about that too. And so she connected me to one of her friends who is also my friend, who worked in the same team that I would be joining. Well, she also interned there. She didn't have a good experience. So she was like, let me connect you to a full-time UX designer who actually works there right now. And the full-time UX designer, I know that he has not been having a pleasant time, and he's currently trying to leave the company. He's applying, he's trying to leave. But when my friend, my friend told me about him, she explained that he was trying to leave. But when I talked to him, he made it all sound like perfect heaven. Everything was perfect out. So that was very suspicious to me because I'm getting from my friend that this guy who is full time is not enjoying it and trying to leave. But then when I talk to him, he's saying that it's great and he wants to stay. So I feel like they're trying to cover something up. And I feel like maybe he didn't want to ruin his reputation with the company. And so he was telling me those things.
Have you looked on any of like the websites about them? Like what's it called? Like Glassdoor or anything like where employees can write reviews and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I have, and they don't really have much feedback about UX design specifically. A lot of it is business analysts, like business positions, which I wouldn't be doing, and so not really helpful. But overall, the outlook of the company seems positive. So the company seems positive, but the team not so much.
So the real decision is whether to accept
and burn
before you hear about IBM.
Yeah, that is a real question. I fear burning the bridge, but I also feel like if I do get IBM, I would never ever work at like that's not something I worry about.
So what happened? What'd she do?
Well, I have an update. We didn't get it on tape, but it turns out she rejected the Company A offer.
And went for the interview with IBM.
Yeah, the interview, right?
Right, but I'm proud of her. I mean, she took a leap of faith, and if it works out, it's going to be great for her. And I mean,
if it works out. I'm proud of her too. Let me just say that up front. Like, I would like to think that I would have done the same thing if I was in her shoes. But at the same time, like, if it doesn't work out, she doesn't have an offer. She's, after her summer, she's going to be in September with nothing.
But, I mean, Company A wasn't going to be the best fit for her anyways, and she would have wanted to leave after 2 or 3 months.
It's easy for you and I think, to make this decision. I think on paper, she made the right call. And she was honest, so she has her integrity. And yeah, you don't want to take a job at a company you don't want. But at the same time, like, let's remember where she started, man. I mean, let's remember that first episode we had with her where she was setting up interview after interview. It wasn't working out. She was feeling super down on herself. She gets to the point now where not only does she have a bunch of new interviews, but she gets an offer. And maybe it's not the perfect job, but it is a job, and given where her family started and, the financial situation that her parents are in, like, that's big.
Right, and it's human to want to take that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, like, reasonable and practical and smart to want to take it, But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm proud of her. So, look, listeners of The Grind, we're going to have an update next episode, and we'll see how IBM turned out. All right, well, thanks, everybody. That was our show for today. As always, we want to thank PG Boo and Trackman Productions. Taylor, good job. You're a producer now.
Thanks.
Like, it's official.
It's a title, I guess.
It's a title. Look, you could sound a little more happy. It's a title. Yeah. All right, you know what? Like, I've been feeling nostalgic. I just want to keep it simple as we sign off. I just want to do a grind on.
Grind on.
Grind on, everybody.